Hey guys, welcome to this awesome video. In this video, we will be reacting to another video. Before we do start, I hope you guys are enjoying these videos because man, I know I am. And I also want to say thank you guys so very much for the support lately. We are almost at 1,700 subscribers right here on YouTube. That's incredible. I can't believe we are here. So expect to be, I guess, 2,000 pretty soon, because at this point, 2,000 subscribers probably gonna happen by this weekend. Or next week, and how fast I'm growing like that, anyway. So, yeah. I need to start making a video of it, though. Yeah. Because that would, well, not really, I guess, but let's get into the weirdest laws in history that's actually existed. Can't speak, apparently. Let's get into it.
From telling you which side of the road to drive on, to punishing people for stealing your iPhone, the law is the rulebook that keeps ordered society from descending into chaos. Laws have been laid down for hundreds of years, and some of them were seriously strange. From banning crying at funerals to making Christmas illegal. But while they may seem outdated, unbelievably, some of them are still in force today, alongside even newer and wackier rules. From fake mustache misdemeanors to poop emoji jail time, it's time to take a look at the weirdest laws that have ever existed.
Weirdest.
Ancient legal lunacy. Now, in most parts of the world today, the rule is that you're considered innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Over 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, they played the Uno reverse card on that assumption, and you were guilty until proven innocent. That's because they believed a truly innocent person would never have been accused of a crime in the first place. Worse still were the punishments. Instead of serving long sentences behind bars, those found guilty could be exiled to Nubia and put to grueling work in the mines. Although most crimes in ancient Egypt are still recognizable offenses today, such as theft and homicide. Meanwhile, in ancient China, they had a whole series of peculiar laws to punish bizarre acts. In their Yuan dynasty that lasted from 1279 to 1368 AD, butchers had to be careful how they displayed their chickens, as it was illegal to hang one upside down. To do so was seen as disrespecting the emperor, whose zodiac sign was the rooster. And while these days men like Tom Cruise and Robert Downey Jr. want to appear taller, in the ancient Qin dynasty that ruled China from 221 to 206 BC, everyone wanted to be Danny DeVito's height. According to the 18 laws of Qin, men under 4 feet 11 and women under 4 feet 8 couldn't be convicted of any crime. That's because birth records of the time were incomplete, so it was difficult to verify one's age. Therefore, height was used instead. So if someone was planning a crime spree in ancient China, it was best to deploy the trick of tying their shoes around their knees. But if someone got caught stealing, the worst thing they could do is turn on the waterworks. Under the Qin dynasty, men were forbidden to cry. If an adult man was found crying in public, his beard and eyebrows would be shaved off as punishment. Because the Qin dynasty was well known for its worship of warrior traditions, it's believed tears were seen as a weakness, and so this mutilation reflected the temporary loss of the martial spirit. Wow, imagine making crying illegal these days. Especially when sometimes it's just unavoidable, like at a funeral. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Romans were even stricter and banned women from crying at funerals. A harsh law to have, but one that served a purpose to prevent funerals getting out of hand.
Oh crap, +1 or -5? I'm gonna add more to the +1.
But one that served a purpose to prevent funerals getting out of hand. A Roman funeral usually involved a procession where people would walk down the street with the body. The more people crying meant the more the person was missed. So, to impress neighbors, wealthy families would hire actors to scream and cry, and even pull out their own hair. The dramatic performances got so extreme that a law had to be passed banning women crying at funerals to prevent families hiring actors. Maybe we should pass a new law to prevent YouTubers from releasing any more of those terrible fake crying apology videos. Legal Eagle. The forefathers of the USA laid down the Constitution in 1787 to govern all American states. Now, Article 6, Paragraph 2 of the U.S. Constitution asserts the supremacy of federal law over state law, though this is only for state laws that directly contradict the Constitution, which in true gun-toting, flag-waving, Walmart-buying American fashion means there's nothing to stop state governors from laying down some very specific and ridiculous state laws. Now, most American teenagers spend their days making TikToks or playing video games, but not this kid. Oh no. Instead of a PlayStation, this kid's decided to solve his boredom by pouring salt on railroad tracks. Are the kids all right in Alabama? Weird as it seems, this is actually a niche act of teenage rebellion. Because thanks to a law passed back in the 19th century, it's illegal to pour salt on a railway track in Alabama. Very specific. But it did once serve a purpose when Alabama was an open range state with cattle roaming the land. Farmers would lure sick cows to the tracks with a tasty salt lick. After the cow was hit by a train, the farmers would sue the railway company for compensation of the price of a healthy cow. So the law was passed to bring this salty scam to an end. Well, there's no denying that video is a weird way to express your teenage angst, even with the sound effects. While this is a state law with an extremely narrow purpose, other state laws have been brought in to apply to literally one person, such as in Fairbanks, Alaska in 1917, where one tavern owner kept bringing his pet moose into the bar and getting it drunk, before allowing it to go on a drunken rampage across town. Officials weren't amused by this behavior, and unable to pass a law keeping moose sober, they instead made it illegal for a moose to be on a sidewalk, which prevented the moose from entering the bar. Guess these guys didn't think of trying the back entrance. Weird state laws aren't just a thing of the last century, though. On Alabama's state legislature, under Section 13A-12-1, it's still illegal to wear a fake mustache in church that causes laughter. If it's laughter they're trying to ban from churches, they probably should have outlawed snoring and farting as well. And since Alabama's a Bible Belt state, don't even think about dressing up like a priest for Halloween. Otherwise, you could end up with a $500 fine or a 1-year jail sentence. Technically, under the state code, it's illegal to dress up like a priest or impersonate any member of a religious clergy on any day of the year. Wow. So no Friar Tucker, Sister Act extras here. And Alabama isn't the only state to get tough on Halloween, because in the city of Chesapeake, Virginia, it's illegal for anyone over the age of 14 to go trick-or-treating to supposedly prevent hooliganism. It's classified as a Class 4 misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of up to $250. The same fine also applies for trick-or-treating past 8 p.m.
You're older than 14?
This is a city where officials are just anti-fun. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, sending a friend a meat lover's pizza could serve you with a $500 fine. That's because under Louisiana Revised Statutes 1468.6, it's considered harassment, as you're trying to stick someone with the bill for something they didn't order. For even stricter food laws, hop a couple states over to the city of Gainesville, Georgia, where it's illegal to eat fried chicken with a knife and fork.
New year, new you.
Gainesville, Georgia, where it's illegal to eat fried chicken with a knife and fork.
What?
Wait, who the heck is eating fried chicken with a knife and fork when you have 2 perfectly good forks at the end of your arms? Luckily, this law is rarely enforced because it was brought in as part of a PR campaign in 1961 to make Georgia the fried chicken capital of the U.S. However, this publicity stunt failed because, as we all know, in the States the McDonald's of fried chicken is KFC, and that K stands for Kentucky. Another state law that has never been enforced is one that applies to a mythical creature. That is in Skamania County, Washington. It's... Hang on, I need to do this without laughing. It's illegal to kill Bigfoot. Not because he isn't real, but because he's technically classified as an endangered species. Yet another reason for all those Bigfoot conspiracists to be disappointed. Hopefully they won't vent their frustrations down the phone to their friends in Virginia, as under Section 18 of the state code, it's illegal to use rude language on the phone. In fact, Virginia has multiple telephone-related misdemeanor-level crimes, including causing a pager to ring with intent to annoy. Does anyone who's not an American TV doctor actually own pagers anymore? I thought they died out with the floppy disk, the Walkman, and the dinosaurs. But as strict as it seems, Virginia state law can hold a candle to the United Arab Emirates, where swearing in text messages or social media could get you arrested.
I'm not old.
Under Article 373 of the UAE Penal Code, swearing disgraces the honor or the modesty of a person. And as a result, the UAE has some of the world's strictest cybercrime laws. It's a criminal offense to use rude or abusive language in text messages, and that includes rude emojis such as the poop emoticon. Oh man, if I was in the UAE, I'd be put in jail so fast. That's basically the only emoji I use. Amazingly, one British woman faced up to 2 years in jail and a $140,000 fine after dropping the F-bomb on her roommate in a private WhatsApp message. Though luckily her lawyers were able to drop the charges to deportation and a smaller fine of $726. The U.S. may be full of crazy state laws, but at least the Constitution's First Amendment protects freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So I'm free to use as many poop, peach, and eggplant emojis as I like. Maple Lawyer. Oh, Canada, the nation of moose, maple syrup, and extreme politeness. Saying sorry is so reflexive in Canada that there are literal laws, such as the Apology Act in Ontario, that declare someone saying sorry cannot be used as evidence of guilt in a court case. But historically, Canada has had some much weirder laws to contend with. In the early 20th century, there were multiple battles between the breakfast spreads in Canada, resulting in margarine being banned from 1886 to 1917. The dairy industry had taken insult at margarine manufacturers adding yellow food coloring to make margarine look more like butter. The margarine bans briefly lifted during wartime shortages, but margarine only became fully legal again in 1948. Man, I do not envy the smugglers of the time. I bet they got so confused whether their customers were asking for Mary Jane or margarine. But butter isn't the only mundane thing Canada's laws come down hard on. In Canada, Ontario, a city bylaw once made it illegal for you to paint your garage door purple. A violent garage door could have landed you with a $100 fine. Before it was amalgamated with Ottawa, the laws stated only earth tones like beige, green, and gray could be used to paint a property in line with a citywide homeowners association ruling. While that's pretty ugly, Canada is full of natural beauty, from its waterfalls to its national parks. But if you plan on taking your pets along for a hike, you'll need to read the rules first, because it's illegal to bring a llama into a Canadian national park. Wait, am I reading that right? Yep, seems like I am. Llama, that popular Canadian pet. While horses and donkeys can be brought in for recreational use, under an umbrella permit, llamas require special permits of their own to just be there. This is due to concerns that llamas may transmit rare diseases to the wildlife found in national parks, such as sheep, though critics of the law have claimed that this fear is unsubstantiated. Doesn't say anything about alpacas, though, does it? I mean, they look similar, but they are different animals. Don't tell the rangers, but I think I might have found a loop in the system here, guys. However, not all of Canada's laws are so cute and quirky. Another involves a cruel and inhumane practice, as it's a legal requirement to listen to Justin Bieber. Playing the Biebs music is a mandated form of Canadian patriotism. By law in Canada, all radio stations have to play Canadian artists on the airwaves at least 35% of the time between the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday. Man, I'd rather be thrown in jail than spend an hour listening to Nickelback every day. Well, following through on that plan, a surefire way for me to get arrested in Canada would involve a clown costume, a large cardboard box, and a royal visit. Can you work out the connection? Well, jumping out like a jack-in-the-box would give King Charles a terrible fright. And in Canada, it's a treasonous offense to scare the monarch. Previously, this crime could be punished with up to 14 years in prison. However, this law was repealed back in 2018. So I'll go and get my clown costume ready for the King's next North American tour. Game of Scones. England is one of the oldest countries in Europe, so it's no surprise there's tons of old laws in the history books. But did you know there was a law created in the 17th century that literally canceled Christmas? Yep, in a move Scrooge himself would be proud of, the English made Christmas illegal. Following the English Civil War, when hated King Charles I had his head lopped off, Sir Oliver Cromwell rose to power and ruled England. Cromwell was a strict Puritan and deemed Christmas to be a wild pagan festival because the 25th of December was not a named day in the Bible. So in 1647, he made Christmas illegal. Shops and markets were required to stay open on December 25th, and soldiers patrolled the streets of London, seizing any turkeys, cranberry sauce, and mince pies. Despite Cromwell being a total Scrooge, the Christmas spirit could not be dampened. Across the country, there were widespread protests and illegal turkeys eaten regardless.
I'm locked in the bathroom during
Stupid ad.
vacation.
Illegal turkeys eaten regardless. And yet it wasn't until 1660 that the Christmas ban was officially revoked, when Cromwell was removed and the rightful King of England, King Charles II, was returned to the throne. It's a Christmas miracle! Although a Christmas ban hasn't been the only law totally ignored in the UK. In fact, there are a series of laws Brits break every single day. Binge drinking culture is famous in the UK, and people can be seen celebrating happy hour at any time. However, according to Section 12 of the Licensing Act 1872, it's illegal to be drunk in a bar. Even the barman could get into trouble, as under the Metropolitan Police Act 1839, it's illegal for the keeper of a public house, also known as a pub, to permit drunkenness on the premises. And this isn't some outdated 19th century law. Recent laws have been updated, such as the Licensing Act 2003, which makes it an offense to sell alcohol to a person who is drunk. Who is the UK government fooling? They can impose as many laws as they like, but that's not going to stop the Brits' boozy behavior. Even the Licensing Act of 1872 has special rules to govern the UK's hard-drinking farmers, as it's still illegal to be in charge of a horse or cow while drunk. Remember, kids, don't drink and ride. And when it comes to animal welfare, the UK is surprisingly strict. Don't get caught sneaking around with a salmon, as it's illegal to handle a salmon under suspicious circumstances. Though as strange as this law may sound, the Salmon Act 1986 is actually designed to crack down on salmon poaching and prevent the sale of salmon caught from an illegal source. But the UK's fish laws don't end there. According to a medieval law dated back to 1324, the king owns all the dolphins and whales within 3.1 miles of the UK's coastline. So he rules over both the nation of Wales and the UK's population of, well, whales. Though the king's menagerie of animals doesn't stop at whales or corgis, as he also owns all the unclaimed swans in the country. The king's flock of swans in the River Thames tributaries is counted every year in a 5-day event known as the Swan-Upping, where the king gets to learn the number of his fine feathered friends. So don't go bothering the swans unless you want to feel the king's fury. But man, do you know how vicious swans can be? There have been incidents of swan encounters ending in broken arms. If I ever have to go near one of those beastly birds, I'll need a suit of armor. But I'd have to steer clear of the UK's government building, the Houses of Parliament, because since 1313 it's been illegal to enter Parliament in a suit of armor. It was enacted after noblemen of the time would come to Parliament armed, among rising tensions. So this law prevented them from suiting up and hashing out their differences with swords while on the floor. Though it's a law that remains active to this day. I guess the only outfit suitable for Parliament now is a suit and tie. Kangaroo Court. Australia may seem like it has a laid-back casual culture, but down under the law books tell a different story. Take flying a kite, for instance, a perfectly peaceful way to spend an afternoon. But in the state of Victoria, flying a kite could land you with a $550 fine. The law applies to any kite flown to the annoyance of any person, under Section 4 of the Summary Offences Act 1966. And Victoria's strict state laws don't just restrict your activities at the park. They also come down hard on spring cleaning too. Turns out it's an offense to make any, and I quote, unreasonable noise with a vacuum cleaner after 10 p.m. The law even applies to early risers, as it's illegal to vigorously vacuum before 7 a.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. on weekends. This is under Section 48A of the Environment Protection Act 1970, breach of which could result in a whopping $13,200 fine. Crikey! That's a steep price to pay to clean up some late-night cookie crumbs. Midnight vacuuming isn't the only thing that could land you a hefty fine in Southern Australia, though. If you're ever invited to an Aussie wedding, when the priest asks if anyone has any objections, keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you could end up with a $7,000 fine or worse, 2 years imprisonment. This is according to the Summary Offenses Act 7A, which states that any person who intentionally disturbs a wedding or a funeral is committing a criminal act. I guess instead of speaking now, I'll be forever holding my peace. And if you thought the law might be more relaxed in Sydney, then you'd be mistaken, because the cops double up as fashion police. No, seriously. Back in 2016, a taxi driver was fined $70 by police for wearing the wrong color shoes. Sydney police viewed brown shoes as a crime against fashion and fined the taxi driver under the NSW Passenger Transport Act 1990, which requires an approved network uniform. Though the act says nothing about brown shoes specifically. In fact, after the taxi driver, who worked for Uber, which has no set uniform, contested the fine, charges were soon dropped. Looks like the only offense here was committed by the Sydney police, who had a criminal lack of taste. However, one law that could initiate a full police response is something spectacular. Under the Marketing of Potatoes Act 1946, police had the authority to stop and search any vehicle suspected of carrying more than the wonderfully specific amount of 110 pounds of potatoes. That's because the Potato Marketing Corporation held a lot of sway back in the day and made it illegal for anyone to sell, buy, or deliver more than 110 pounds of potatoes without them knowing. And though this law may seem starch raving mad, it remained in force in Western Australia up to 2021. Makes you wonder what dirt the Potato Marketing Board had on the lawmakers over there. One of the weirdest of the country's laws of all also comes from Western Australia, where it's illegal to collect seabird or bat poo without a special poo collector's license under Section 387 of the Criminal Code Act 1913. Now, this may seem like a totally gross law because who goes around collecting poo? Yuck. But you'd be surprised what a big business this used to be. Known as guano, the fecal matter collected from seabirds such as penguins and cormorants, as well as bats, was a highly desirable fertilizer. This poo is jam-packed with nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium, all key nutrients that plants need to grow. However, this fecal excavation resulted in the loss of millions of seabirds as their habitats were destroyed. So this law was brought in to restrict the shitty business. Meanwhile, the use of guano these days has largely been replaced by chemically manufactured fertilizers. So the penguins can finally poop in peace. Continental Justice. Europe is a hugely diverse continent, spanning from warm sunny Greece to the icy cold depths of Russia. And with such a rich history tied to this landmass, there are lots of loopy laws that have been laying down over the years. Take 17th century Russia, where you might think one of the worst crimes was theft, but instead pulling out the Monopoly board could have landed you in even more trouble. Tsar Alexis, who ruled from 1629 to 1676, adored foreign board games like chess and checkers. But in an attempt to keep up his strict pious appearance, he banned all board games for his citizens under the 1649 Council Code. Though the mad laws of Russian rulers didn't stop there, as following that in 1698, Emperor Peter I enforced a beard tax. In order to conform with what he believed to be European ideals, he required that townsmen be charged 60 rubles annually to keep a beard, roughly equivalent to about $50 at the time, which would now be around $3,000. For a beard that cost nothing to grow, the police were ordered to shave any man who refused to pay the tax. No, anything but the dreaded baby face. And while the Tsar's police force were armed with razors, in 20th century Greece the police patrolled the streets with measuring tapes? Apparently, the dictatorship of General Theodoros Pangalos was exceptionally brief, only lasting from 1925 to 1926. Though in that time he laid down draconian laws and forbade women to wear skirts higher than 10 inches off the ground. Fortunately for the Greek women, this skirt law lasted as short a time as General Pangalos's rule. Though modesty laws weren't a strictly European invention either. As in the US, there were a series of laws in the 1920s that banned women from showing their legs in swimsuits. While during World War II a shortage of nylon used to make modesty-guarding stockings meant women had to resort to using marker pens to draw streamlines on the back of their legs. To be seen bare-legged in those days was a social scandal. Crazy, right? I bet last century's lawmakers would lose it if they were alive today.
Is that a bare shin? Ye gods, a naked calf!
Is that, by God, is that a knee? Don't you know dignity ends at the ankle? Times have changed, but not all of the laws are up to date. Imposed in 1800, one shockingly old-fashioned law in France banned women from wearing trousers and required that women needed the permission of the local police to, no joke, dress like a man, with the exception of wearing trousers when riding a bike or on horseback. Though ignored for decades, this law was only officially repealed as late as 2013. Thankfully, this sexist relic of a law has been retired to the crypt, but that leads us to an even weirder French law. Now, Paris may be known as the city of love, but French laws take romance to a whole new extreme. As in France, you can legally marry the dead. Known as necrogamy, it is an official ceremony where one can marry their deceased partner, permitted under Article 171 of the Civil Code. It was an especially common practice after World War I, when women wanted to assure the legitimacy of their children after their wartime sweethearts sadly perished on the front lines. Around 50 requests for posthumous marriages are made in France every year. I guess love never dies. Marrying the dead isn't the only way the law tackles the Grim Reaper. Death may be inevitable, but one law has done the impossible and made death itself illegal. Or at least one mayor of Langeron village in Granada, Spain tried to in 1999. Back then he banned any of the village's 4,000 residents from dying. Though this mayor isn't as foolish as he sounds. Instead, it was a savvy political move to draw attention to the fact the local cemetery had become full and the village needed permission to expand. Ultimately, as far as the law can reach, it'll never manage to throw the Grim Reaper in jail. What did you think was the craziest?
Okay, those are some crazy laws. Guess that would be it for the video. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe. Don't forget to buy my merch, because my merch is awesome. And for all the month of May, if you go to my shop, it is going to be 15% off all month of May. So go enjoy your 15% off. Guess that would be it. And I guess I will see you guys on next time. Goodbye.